All right. It is my honor and privilege to introduce our keynote speaker of the day, Mr. Ishan Lal. I got a chance to meet him for the first time last summer, and he just blew me away when I met him in Abbeville. Come on up, Ishan. He was at the Juneteenth ceremony there, and you talk about a young man who has wisdom beyond his 18, 19 years. Ishan is it. He is more poised and confident than I am in my 50. So everybody, please welcome Ishan to the stage and an introduction to Greenwood County.
Good morning. Well, thank you so much, Bill, for that great introduction. It is an absolute pleasure and honor to be standing here speaking to you all today. My name is Ishan Lal, as Bill said, and I'm a resident of Greenwood, South Carolina, and I'm currently enrolled in my sophomore year at George Washington University in our nation's capital. Before I get started, there's just a couple people here in the audience who I want to thank for coming today. First is Mr. Floyd Nicholson right over there. I've had the pleasure of getting to know him over the past couple of weeks and months, and he has offered me a lot of advice and mentoring, so I want to thank him for coming today and seeing me speak for the first time. The second person I want to thank is right over there, Mr. Jerry McGraw. He is a personal trainer here in Greenwood, South Carolina. I've had the pleasure of getting to know him since I was 7 or 8 years old when I was at Cambridge Academy here in Greenwood. And he offered me a lot of confidence and mentoring as I was growing up, so I want to thank him for coming today. And the third person, last but certainly not least, is Mrs. Carr, my former high school teacher, who's here from Greenville, South Carolina. She taught me U.S. history and U.S. government, and all my love for politics would not be anywhere without Mrs. Carr. So thank you for coming today as well. Now, I know many of you might be wondering, what the heck does a young, very handsome, smart, and distinguished 19-year-old have to tell all of us? What does he know that we do not know? And why am I wasting my time listening to the younger generation? The truth is simple. My generation and future generations must learn how to tackle the issues that we face, and therefore we must be more engaged within the political process. It is no secret that what we are witnessing today in America is truly a sad sight. Our democracy is teetering on the brink of crisis, where a fundamental contest is taking place between two groups of individuals, of two groups of Americans, who each believe what America is and what it should be. Every day we turn on the news and we see gun violence seeping into every corner in our country. January 6 committee hearings of an event that challenged the very foundations of our democracy, and the protections of women's rights challenged across the country. I have been given the great opportunity to see these issues firsthand and how they are affecting American livelihoods as I currently intern for House Majority Whip, Congressman James Clyburn in D.C. at his Capitol office. I was fortunate enough to be given this opportunity through my previous various leadership positions. I served as a student body president at St. Joseph's Catholic High School, my former high school, as a non-Catholic student, and won the election as youth governor of South Carolina as a minority. Working with Congressman Clyburn's office has truly been a wonderful experience. There I have been exposed to great leaders on the Democratic aisle who are solving these issues through thoughtful leadership and civic engagement at the federal level. Among the daily nuances of working in an office heightened with a lot of political tension and anxiousness for what happens next, one of the most important lessons I have learned in the office through Congressman Clyburn and his staff is how to fight the inherent contradictions within American politics. How we proclaim to be the land of opportunity, yet have men and women of color unable to have equal chances. How we proclaim to be a land of freedom, yet have citizens who are unfairly treated by a justice system that ridicules them and destroys them. How we proclaim to be the land of democracy, yet have leaders who take away our rights to vote in a fair and equivalent manner. Congressman Clyburn and his staff, amongst the other Democrat leadership, are showing me that we must one day be able to match America's ideals with her reality, to be one in the same. They have taught me that we must work together to make sure that the American experiment prevails, and that all the sacrifice, love, commitment, and service of those before us does not perish. They have also shown me that many Americans perceive Democrats in today's political environment as being unpatriotic, as we have somehow lost touch of our devotion towards American principles. For too long, we have been labeled as being unpatriotic, and by some former presidents as un-American. And nothing, I can assure you, could be further from the truth. We must reclaim that mantle of patriotism and not allow ourselves to be labeled by others trying to divide us. And most importantly, they have taught me that it is our duty to instill in Americans, especially those of the younger generation, those my age, the pride of living in our country, but also understanding the words of our Constitution in order to form a more perfect union. We are not perfect. That is very evident. But this country is worthy of our best in finding sustainable, powerful ways to move forward in an ever-changing society, so that America can be the shining city upon a hill whose beacon light guides freedom-loving people everywhere. Now, I know that I am still just a young man finding his path, and there are many things that I still have to experience, fail, and do before I get to a certain level of feeling comfortable, maybe. But if there is one thing that I can promise you all here today, is I believe in hope. I believe in belief. One of the most powerful tenets of our great democracy is our belief in creating a better future for all Americans, to live as safe, conscious, duty-driven citizens, and to be involved in the process of creating a better world. So I ask all of you, do not give up. Every single one of us has the power to change the world, even in the smallest of ways. And every past American generation before me has always pulled together when times were tough. We cannot and we will not be that exception. We can do better, we must do better, and we will do better. So thank you all very, very much for your time. May God bless you, and may God bless these United States of America. Thank you.
Absolutely wonderful. I would also like to introduce you to Ishan's parents, Mega and Dr. Ishan Lal. They're great, great members of Greenwood County. Mega does amazing work in about 100 different charitable organizations. And then Dr. Samir does great work at the hospital as well. So thank you for all you do. And I think you did okay. I think you did okay. So at this time, do we have any questions for Samir? Not for Samir, for Ishan. Sorry. We can ask Samir questions later. Yes, we do.
I don't mind you asking him a question either, so I want to see his response.
I'm just curious. What are your future plans? Do you plan to run for office someday?
That's a great question.
We need people like you.
As of right now, I'm trying to take things day by day, but I am very interested in one day running for political office in the future. I think right now my days in D.C., I'm just trying to take things one day at a time and really learn and serve and understand as much as I possibly can. But that door will always be open, and I'm always very interested in doing that in the future. So yes, ma'am.
Do you have any plans on speaking to the youth? You are an example. And do you have any engagements that we can invite youth to come in here? He asked a question about getting the youth out. You're a prime example of why we need our youth to come out.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I would always welcome the opportunity to speak to as many people my age as I possibly can. If anyone has any opportunities for me to do so, I would love to take that opportunity on. I think for now, I'm only going to my sophomore year, so I still try and come back to my former high school and try and do as much as I possibly can there. And I'm always trying to do anything when any young kids come into Congressman Clyburn's office. A lot of times they'll have me as a kind of intern and staff member talk to the younger kids or anyone my age coming in for tours or anything, just to talk to them, make them feel a bit more comfortable. But I would love to be a voice and really motivate as many young kids as I possibly can to hopefully be where I am one day and to be in this kind of position. So.
Good answer. Any other questions?
Ishan, when I do voter registration drives,
Yes, ma'am.
I have had a lot of young people say, well, my vote won't count. Why should I get involved? What would you say to a young voter who says that?
It's a great question. My father who's here, he and I talk a lot about this today when we're at home, and we have a lot of political discussions. And one of the things that I find very interesting is a lot of my friends at George Washington, or even here at Clemson or USC or wherever else, they go on Instagram and they go on Snapchat and they're always talking about, oh, this isn't right, or this isn't happening, I can't believe this is happening. And then you talk with them in person and say, well, have you registered to vote? Have you done proper steps? And they're like, no, I'm okay. And I'm kind of going, well, then why are you talking about it if you have the opportunity to do so, you should. And I think that starts with education in our schools and having classes in which teachers can instill in them that ability to be involved in the political process. But oftentimes I feel like that it's a very hard thing to instill in the younger generation, because I think sometimes as you get older, when you become a parent, you become a grandparent, and you have more responsibilities, you then are able to be more involved in the political process. But what I would say to the young generation is that everything that you do right now all comes from a lot of state and local and federal government decisions. And I think that it's all about teaching these younger kids what is required right now in order to change these things. And that comes from voting. That comes from them coming to the polls. That comes from them being involved in the political process. So I think it's all about having to cultivate that kind of mindset and that culture. And I think today in the American political landscape, because it's become so polarized, I think that more and more people are going to come out in this next election. And I certainly hope so.
Thank you, Ishan. Hey, are you aware of another intern from South Carolina who interned for Representative Clyburn?
I know a couple of other interns, yes, sir.
Who's the most famous one?
Jamie Harrison.
That's correct. He is following in Jamie Harrison's footsteps. So can we now introduce U.S. Senator Ishan Lal? How does that sound? One day.
Thank you.
One day. Thank you.
Thank you.
I got goosebumps there for a second when a 19-year-old is asking us not to lose hope. 19-year-old telling us not to lose hope, and I needed to hear that. And I hope you did too. So thank you, sir. Those are great words, and we look forward to many more words.